you're from, what do you do, what are your hobbies before we get into the conversation?
Well, I'm from Southern California, San Juan Capistrano, originally from LA. Ariel, you're from LA. So um, I got into life coaching and success coaching about 5 years ago. I've been an entrepreneur for a very long time and have had successful businesses. And as much as they were fun and rewarding, I was in marketing for quite a bit. I found that I really wanted to give back. So I started doing a lot of Reiki treatments for people and working with energy, and that led into coaching. So I really enjoy the healing aspect, and I really enjoy helping people to have their aha moments and to find them, because I find that, we all have the power within us. It's just a point of figuring out how to access it and to really get back on more of the positive spin of life. And I really love helping people to get that.
This is going to be a fun conversation because I feel like we have a similar path or calling.
Fantastic.
Now, that is really cool what you do. And I have found in my experience that usually people who are this much inclined to help, it usually came from a place of pain or hard times. Is that true in your case?
Yes, that's very true. Actually, wow, it was a long time ago. Several years ago, I went through a very severe depression where there were days where I couldn't get out of bed. There were days where I just felt really, really low about my life, like wondering why I was even on the planet and if I should stay. Just really dark thoughts. And then I started writing. I actually started writing, and I found that to be very therapeutic for me. And that kind of started to pull me out. And I thought, I like how I feel when I write. How can I feel like that in my life on day to day without the writing? What's it going to take? And so that started just this quest for knowledge and reading books and going to seminars and doing whatever I could do to find what I needed to access in me to get me to that positive feeling. So yes, it came from a very deep-seated sense of hurt, a very deep sense of not being on my path and knowing it, and finding the tools to get me there and to get me into that positive, healthy, happy feeling that I had been desiring. It took me a while to achieve that, but I achieved that through a lot of reading and searching and having the right coaches and having the right programs at my fingertips. And then it became a way of life. And then that's when everything really shifted.
That's crazy. So I'm a suicide intervention coach. I actually host support groups here in Los Angeles, and so it's for suicide, depression, and self-injury. So this is something I'm very familiar with. What tools, you talked about writing and reading, which are amazing. Going back to that initial, for me, I hit rock bottom as well, so I have my suggestions, but for you hitting that rock bottom, and there's like that initial 1-3 month span, people don't want to get up and get going. It's very hard when you're depressed. So what are some tools that you used to help you get motivated, to go open a book and actually read it, to go start writing? What were some either phrases you told yourself or some different tools that you used?
Well, one of the simple ones is that I would just start to tell myself, okay, I can do this. And when I was saying I can do this, it was something as simple, like you said, of getting out of bed. Like just thinking of the thought, I need to get out of bed, but I don't want to get out of bed. And then my mind would start this cycle. So I say, okay, just get out of bed. If you can just get out of bed, then you've achieved something. All right. You've already gotten there. And it was taking baby steps. It was really more of just putting a goal, even though to, someone just in normal daily life, it might not seem like a big deal, but someone that's in the throes of depression, getting out of bed is a huge thing. Getting into the shower is a huge thing. Getting out of your pajamas is a huge thing. So what I started to do was to look at that almost like reaching goals. And I'd have a little checklist. If I could mark things off the checklist, all of a sudden I felt better about myself. I felt like I was making progress. I felt like I was moving forward. And although, to some, that might not seem like a big deal, to me, it was a a huge deal. And I was very blessed to have a lot of support around me to say, you're doing great. And, let's just take it day by day. And you're having a great day. And yeah, there would be bad days too. And I'd let myself have those days. I wouldn't judge myself for it. I'd say, okay, today is not yesterday and that's not tomorrow. It's just I'm in it and I'm in it. And I'd let myself be in it. I found that being gentle with myself in that way made it a lot easier to move forward. And it's like, oh, it's okay. It suddenly made it okay, which is great because I find that there was a lot of, exterior condemnation coming from, people that weren't supporters in my life at the time who, ended up not being in my circle of friends anymore. So it's releasing that because I feel like once you can release that self-judgment, it makes it a little easier to come out of the darkness and step into the light. And then you start to build a momentum. You check off those tasks, you start to feel better. And then that's when I'd pick up a book, or then that's when I'd pick up my journal. So, and then you start really getting momentum. You really start making forward progress. So that's really how it worked for me.
I love this a lot. It's very similar to a concept that I share in support group about if you're in a vehicle and you're speeding down the freeway at 90 miles per hour. So you're speeding down, you're feeling depressed, you've been that way for months, years, etc. You can't just flip the wheel to turn around and go the other way. So just say, I'm happy, things are gonna be fine. And so I love the concept of baby steps. So making a little checklist. You have to slowly turn the wheel. And then you build the momentum, and then you can head in the other direction. So the idea of that checklist of like, hey, I got up today, I made it, I got to work, or I'm gonna call a friend, or these slow progress steps. That's really cool. I want to talk to you about energy.
Okay.
So I am huge on energy. I listen to actually Abraham Hicks every single
awesome.
morning. Law of Attraction books I'm constantly reading. I listen to a podcast every single morning. And so you and I both know this, and this is easy to us. And I introduced the concept of the term in last night's support group. And it's very foreign to a lot of people. Like, wait, what? Everything is energy? And we're attracting? Wait, you're trying to tell me that I just attracted that horrible situation? No, that's horrible. But in a sense, it's very good news because it means we can attract good and positive people and circumstances and outcomes. So what's your take on energy? How does that work? How does this correlate into this all?
Well, you really just touched on it, is everything is energy, and there is a lot of power in thought. And as you mentioned, that gets a little scary for people because then they feel like, oh no, I just created something that I don't like and I keep creating it. And it's a point of just get aware that you're having that thought in the first place. That's where I always start with people is if you can get aware that you have that thought, what is the polar opposite of it? I like to work in polarities. So if they're having a negative thought about something, then they've just created that. Take a look at that. Okay, you don't like it, right? What is the polar opposite of that? Oh, I feel good, or oh, I just attracted in $20, or my bank account is positive, or I just met someone really great. Okay, start thinking about that and start focusing on the emotion tied with that, the feeling tied with that. I mean, it feels good, right? It feels good. So that is going to pull in good energy. And then the thing I like to stress, though, is don't worry about a time frame. Don't worry how it's going to come to you because the worry will actually stop the flow, like right then and there, and you'll have to rebuild. It's like a rebuilding effort. So what I do with a lot of my clients, it's a fun exercise, and I love to do it. I do it daily, is look for the abundance around you. Okay, and it might not, you might be having a really bad day. Life might not be pretty for you today. Look up at the sky. The sky is blue. It's expansive. It's never ending. That's abundant. It's like, look at the ocean. Look at if you're near a river. Look at you're near a stream. That's abundant. It's ever flowing. It's nonstop. It's there. Look at nature. Look at nature surrounding you. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that tree? Isn't that flower? That's abundance. And it puts you in a state of, wow, it's really all around me. And I find that the more you focus on that, you're starting to pull in more of that. And it's really interesting. You stay in that vibration and things really start to shift. It might be a subtle shift, but yeah, as long as you recognize it and say, wow, okay. And then you start to see how it's working. And then it builds that momentum. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about before with the baby steps. If you start with baby steps with energy, and it really goes back to just pinpointing a thought and a feeling.
Yeah.
And you can shift your polarity into a positive, loving, happy feeling polarity. Then you're on your way. Then you can start building. But I always encourage my clients, it really has to start very small. It has to start on a very minuscule level. And then you start to take steps forward.
I agree. And you just touched on the next question about the difference between forcing and allowing when it comes to manifestations or desires that we want. What's the difference between that?
Well, I find that with my clients, they want a certain outcome. Maybe they want to lose 5 pounds. They want to meet the love of their life. They want to get a new job. But their current situation keeps showing them every day that, they look in the mirror and they're saying, I haven't lost any pounds. Like, they keep focusing on the now, what's happening right now, which means that it hasn't happened yet. That actually creates a resistance. Because you keep on focusing on the fact that it's not here yet. Whatever it is that you're trying to create, it's not here yet. If you keep on saying it's not here yet, you're going to keep creating that. If you can just step back from it, whatever that goal is, and take a minute and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to trust. I'm just going to take a leap of faith here. I'm just going to step back. And I put that intention out there, and I'm going to move forward. What can I do today to move forward toward that? It might be a small action. It might be, ordering a salad instead of a hamburger. It might be going to the gym instead of going out with your friends. It's just little actions, and you might get a little inner sense that you should do that. And I call that divine inspired action. And the more you take those actions, you will actually start moving toward your result. And then you'll look in the mirror and you'll say, oh my gosh, like my jeans are fitting better. Or wow, this, I'm starting to see the effects of this, and then that creates even more momentum for you to get closer to it.
I completely agree. I'm loving this conversation. One thing I always talk about too is feel good now. So many times we're like that this is not happening for me, and we get so focused on it's not manifesting, it's not coming to me, the job, the weight loss, the relationship. So I'm like, hey, we know that, we're aware of that. So we're going to let it sit over here, let that just kind of seem. And now, back to what we do to feel good, what makes us happy. Listen to a favorite song. Eat a favorite food dish that you enjoy eating. Call that person that you love to talk to. Do things that make you feel good. And like I said, that's what gets you back on that momentum, building that and keep going.
Yes.
And another big key component to this, you mentioned it earlier too, is compassion or being gentle with yourself. And I'm always telling people in my group, give yourself a pat on the back. Look at everything that you have been through and accomplished and overcome, and you've got yourself here to either reaching out to you or to going to a support group or just the awareness of wanting to change. That's huge. So compassion, if you want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things because it was one of the most difficult lessons I had to learn for myself. And I think how I drove myself into a depression is that I was a perfectionist. Everything had to be perfect. I was an overachiever. I was very hard on myself. I'm a very driven person. And I turned it inward instead of, externally focused. So it took me a while to figure out how to undo that and to how to reprogram that and to really start having a relationship with myself. I started to think of, how I would talk to, my 4-year-old cousin. And if they didn't, if they didn't go to preschool and do a beautiful finger painting, would I get angry with them? And I wouldn't. I'd say, gosh, you did great. You put in an awesome effort. Look at that. So I thought, why don't I turn that on myself? Even for little things. And that started to build a momentum for me. And then before I knew it, it became a habit, but I had to create that habit for myself. And even when I've had failures, and I have had major failures, It's more of looking at it like, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And what did you learn from this? Instead of beating myself up for taking the risk, whatever it may be. I mean, I've had businesses in the past that didn't turn out. So it was a loss of money. It was a loss of pride. There were a lot of things tied in with it, but I learned a lot. It made me the business owner I am today. So I wouldn't have had that without that failure. So it's more of looking at what you can gain from whatever the loss is. And also when you have a little bit of movement forward, like you said, give yourself a pat on the back or take the time to celebrate even very tiny victories. And I think a lot of us forget to do that because we get into the throes of everyday life. And it's just taking those little steps for you and saying, gosh, you know, you did a great job today. You really need to take time to pat yourself on the back, to congratulate yourself, because 2 weeks ago, you know, you didn't have this result and now you do. So we just get into, oh, I got to achieve this goal. Oh, I got to get this. I got to get that. And you're not looking at the progress that you're making along the road. And it's so important with compassion. It goes hand in hand. And that also goes in with self-love as well.
Completely agree. Jessica, our time has flown by. Where can people get a hold of you, contact you, reach out to you if they wanted to do sessions or appointments with you?
On jessicanevins.com, and actually I have a special promotion for everyone that's listening today. So if you go to jessicanevins.com/hidden heroes, I'm offering free breakthrough sessions. So if you sign up, and there's only a limited amount of them, so I encourage you, if working with me is something you might be interested in, then to go there today and to sign up, and we'll get you on the books and we'll have a breakthrough session.
That is awesome. I'm very excited. I'm actually going to share your info with everyone in my support group.
Fantastic.
Jessica, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Ariel. I've enjoyed it.
Everybody else listening in, this is Hidden Heroes with Jessica Nevins. Check her out, jessicanevins.com, and have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.